I am Ross Hawkins, the director of the Academic Advising and Transfer Center. And today I am happy to introduce Sue McCrory, who is going to be doing an advisor forum, what advisors need to know about using the testing center for faculty and students. So Sue, thank you for joining us today and your willingness to share this information. And I will turn it over to you.
Hey. Hi, everybody. I am going to share my screen and we're going to kind of walk through what students and faculty need to do. So give me 1 second and I will do that. I have too much stuff open right now, but we're going to see. Can everybody see that screen?
Yes.
I assume you can.
Yes.
Okay. This is the testing center website, and one of the first things students need to know is to look at our hours of operation. It is very common for students to be frantically trying to schedule a test, but they haven't bothered to look and see what our business hours are or our testing hours are, and so they're trying to schedule for times that we're not open. The same is true for closures we know about. This semester is unique in that we are closed on the Saturdays of these home football games because the library is attempting to keep the exuberant ones out of the building. And we can't leave it open to let testers in and yet keep the perhaps overly imbibed people out. And in previous years, we've had substantial damage in the building for people coming in when they were not the best condition. So students need to look at both our normal hours of operation and our known closures. I try to keep this updated. If you have a question during the session, please don't hesitate to raise your hand and let me try and answer it during the session, but I'm going to also try to leave time at the end. Once they've gotten here, they would click on schedule an exam. We recommend that they read these instructions, but we know what happens there. They typically don't read them. But the most important thing is, see where it's got 2 links here at the bottom. One says Missouri State University students and one says guest access. Right next to guest access in all caps and bold, it says do not use if you're a Missouri State student. Here's the reason why. The Missouri State University student link requires them to log in with their BearPass username and password. It allows them, once they've registered for an exam, they can log in through this same link and see their testing history, see their existing appointments, reschedule them, cancel them, manage those entirely. It also, if they have accommodations, it matches up their accommodation account with their appointment so that we know what accommodations they have. If they use the guest access link, none of that happens. The guest access lets them type in their own, there's no login process. It lets them type in their own user, a Gmail account, whatever they want. Sometimes they put a chosen name in there rather than the name the university has on file, which means we can't identify them. It doesn't match them up to their accommodations. And there's no way for them to log back into this and check their current appointments or anything else. We've had extreme cases of students who use a different email address every time they click on guest access, and they will have 4 or more user IDs in our appointment system, and then they're emailing us or calling us going, I can't find my appointment confirmation. Well, which email address did you check? Because they've got 4 or 5 in our system. And that makes things very difficult. Typically, a student who, in my experience, has scrolled past this and used guest access instead doesn't remember their BearPass username and password. And so they're just bypassing this because they don't know what they're supposed to enter in. But it does cause a problem. So let's assume that we are a Missouri State student who does what they're supposed to do, and they click on this. And in my case, it knows I'm already logged in, so it's not going to make me. If I was a student, however, it would take me to this screen. You can see where it says view complete history. If I had exams already scheduled or already taken even, they would be listed here, but I could complete that and click on that and they can see their complete history. The instructions for scheduling, how to reschedule, how to cancel are all down here. There's a know before you go page, policies for taking exams, and a user agreement. The user agreement has to be signed both as part of registration and when they actually show up to take their test. The first thing they have to do is select a group, which is the type of exam they need to take. There's a Missouri State computer exams, that's for online classes. There is the Missouri State paper exams, also for online classes. They may have makeup tests. They may take the math placement exam. I would think that some advisors get questions about taking the math placement exam, and they can take it here either in person or remotely by using Blackboard Lockdown browser. So that all gets, but they still have to be scheduled so that I can put them in the course. There's multiple of other kinds of exams here. At this point, I want to be really clear for both faculty and students. By mandate from the provost, we do not do entire class testing except for those classes that are Missouri State online classes. If you have a seated class or even a blended class, the only thing your students are typically coming over here for would be one of these specialty exams or a makeup alternate date exam or an accommodated exam. And you'll see that there's no option to choose accommodated exam here. And we're going to discuss why that is. So let's say I'm a Missouri State computer exam online class person. And the next thing I'm going to choose that. And the next thing I'm going to choose is what exam. The only exams listed are those exams which the instructor has said is a computer-based exam. It's listed in alphabetical order by their course, and it automatically appends the instructor's name. If you'll see that these all say exam 2, test 2, exam 2. That's because the time period for most test 1s has already expired. So they can't go back and pick one that's the window's no longer open for. These are just the exams that windows are open for. And you can see that the ones all the way out to finals are available. Students can schedule these as early as they want. There is a deadline for a schedule no later than, but there is no deadline for you can't schedule any sooner than. If it's listed here, they can make an appointment. Due to an issue with being in compliance with federal law about accommodations, there is now a 5 calendar day, or truthfully, it's really 120 hours advance notice requirement. That's because the DRC has established 5 calendar days or 5 business days as their advance notice, and we have to try and match that as much as possible. So students need to register for exams at least 120 hours prior to whatever exam date and time they want to use. Just for fun, I'm going to pick Dr. Kern's ACC 201 exam. And you'll see as we complete things, they turn green. The current active field is orange. So here they would pick a date. It won't let them make an appointment for outside of the exam window. And you'll see for this exam, the only times available are Friday the 15th and Sunday the 17th. Why is Saturday the 16th not available? Well, if you'd looked at our known closures, you'd know that that's one of the home football games and we're going to be closed that day. So in line with what most students do, I'm going to pick the last day it's available. And then our testing times are all there. It will not let them select a time outside of the testing times that we have scheduled. it will not let them schedule for a time that would put them over our closing time. So you can see that the latest time available here is 7:30. That's because the length of this exam, if they scheduled later than this, could potentially put them past our closing time, and we can't let them do that. So they have to pick a time. So once they pick a time, it's going to ask, this should be pre-filled in. If they use the BearPass student link and logged in with their user credentials, this will already be filled in. In most cases, for students, they can't go in and change this. I can change it because it knows I'm logged in as an administrator, but this would be grayed out so that they can't change it. Then their user agreement is here. Much like other user agreements, I'm fairly certain nobody ever reads these, but they do have to click on saying they agree to our policies. And some of them may seem a little weird, but for instance, it might say keep your hands above the desk and your feet on the floor at all times. And your shoes must remain on the feet at all times. Why is that? Because we've had students come in here and have written things on the bottoms of their feet. And so they take their shoes off and sit like cross-legged in their chair, and they've got notes written on the bottom of their feet. So feet have to stay on the floor, shoes must remain on their feet at all times. They have to have their valid photo ID. This is probably the biggest roadblock most of our students have, because they will show up with either no ID or a non-valid ID. And that means they've got a driver's license that's sometimes months past expiration, or they have no ID whatsoever. And we can't let them test if that's the case. So then they have to check the box, and it moves on, and they're supposed to give us a phone number. Why do we require a phone number? We require a phone number in case there is a last minute emergency where I need to actually call all the people who are supposed to come in and say, don't come in, or something like that. We've had 2 actual fires in the library in the past 6 years, small ones, but fires. And we had some other emergency, I can't remember what it was, that I had to call everybody that was scheduled to come in later in the day and say, don't come in today because we don't know when this is going to be resolved. So that's what they would do. They would put their phone number in here, and I'm going to put my phone number in so you can see what they do next. And then it says add to cart. We've all seen add to cart. Every time you do online shopping, you get an add to cart. So they click it. This is the next most common roadblock for students. They get here and they stop. Oh, I added it to cart. That's all I have to do. That isn't all you have to do. You also have to complete registration. Much like checking out in Amazon or something else, you have to check out. If you just put the items in the cart, are you going to get them? No. The same is true for registering for an exam. If you put it in your cart, but you don't complete registration, you didn't make an appointment. Once they click complete registration, they will get an automated email directly from our appointment system, which is called Register Blast, that says, here's your appointment information. Here's a confirmation of your appointment. If they don't get that, more than likely, this is what they failed to do. And if they failed to do that, there's nothing we can do. They have to finish this. If they just show up and say, well, I got to this, but I didn't do that, they don't have an appointment and we can't let them in. So there's not a lot of leeway there. This is also related to compliance with ADA. The DRC has determined that their students cannot do late registrations or walk-ins or anything like that, and therefore neither can anyone else in order to be compliant. So we are doing some single one-time exceptions in certain circumstances for this semester and this semester only. After this semester, we won't be able to do it at all. Our hands will be tied. So this is what they need to do. if your students are complaining they're having trouble making appointments for like the math placement exam, that's what they would pick on their, where it says pick an exam. They would pick math placement exam and choose an exam, and they have to pick which thing they're going to do. It's not likely you're seeing dual credit students, so they're probably doing either in person, which means they're going to come here to take their math placement exam, or the remote version means they're going to take it using Lockdown Browser wherever they are. It gives them some information here and tells them what they should be taking. They, again, have to schedule at least 120 days in advance and choose a time. And this is the math placement exam is open all the time. Even though it's our closure times are blocked out, it still corresponds to our operating hours. So let's say somebody's going to try and pick Saturday the 2nd at 12:30. It let them, or it let me, even though that is within the 120 days advance notice. So I may have to take a peek at that and see what the problem is. But there is, again, information about the user agreement and the instructions, and they agree, give me a phone number. All of this information will also be on their confirmation email that they get. But again, they have to complete registration. If they've got 97 different exams that they're wanting to schedule, they can just keep going. They can click on add another exam, and keep going and do them all at once. If they've got something in their cart that they've decided they don't want, oh, I really didn't need that ACC one, they can empty their cart, take things out, and start over. Okay, so I can take ACC 101 or 211 out of my cart. Now it only shows me the remote version for admitted students. But again, I still haven't checked out. So until I check out, I have not finished. So there's another option right there for them to complete exam. This is what they get. They get an email that says, this is what group, this is where we're located. This is their appointment number, basically. Here is a repeat of all their instructions, and here's contact information. And that will be in their email that they get. Since I finished that, I can show you what it looks like, maybe. Okay, so this is what they get, this is it. They also get a duplicate of this the day before their exam is scheduled. It just sends it to them again as a reminder, hey, you have this appointment tomorrow, to help them remember. So that's what it looks like for students. They should be doing, that's what they should be doing. For faculty, there is a little bit more at play. They need to use the information for faculty page, which explains that we can do Missouri State Online faculty and how to set that up, what the risks are with open book exams. If you are in seated or blended, I can only do makeup or accommodated exams. If you're not Missouri State faculty, which we occasionally get requests from people who want to take an exam here, but they're really enrolled at, say MU or Brigham Young or someplace at a distance. And so we will still give them this option. This is what it is. And we also warn them about open book exams. So if I was a faculty member and I didn't have an account, I would follow these directions and I would make myself an account, and then I could add all my materials. You can add your material, you can set up your exam windows at the beginning of the semester, and then add, if you're doing like a paper exam or you don't know your password yet, or at the start of the semester, you can log back in at any point and edit the exam materials, like add files, upload those. It's a secure upload, add passwords, change what your requirements are, etc. The only things you cannot change as a faculty member is you have to ask me to make any changes to your exam windows or the duration of your exam, like how long it's supposed to take. And that's because changing that after the fact affects other existing appointments. If you have changed your exam window, we may have existing appointments that maybe I need to move for your students. If you're trying to postpone the exam window a few days, if you've decided, as has happened, we had one instructor who originally told us that the exam was only 120 minutes, and then they changed their minds and said it was 180 minutes. And that meant that appointments we already had to be moved, because it's like an appointment at the doctor's office. We allow you a certain amount of time. There are other people who are coming in after you. You have to be done by which is also why we don't allow people to be more than 15 minutes late. They need to be done in time for the next person who has reserved this seat to be able to come in and take their test. It's not fair otherwise. So that's how that works. I would say the biggest change that you all need to know about for this semester is that the DRC got a new director, and as part of his duties, and rightly so, he reviewed all the policies and procedures that were in place, both for his department and for us and for their students using our testing facility. What some of you may or may not know is in order to be in compliance with federal law, we no longer have both a learning disability clinic and a disability resources center. The testing functions of the LDC all got consolidated to the DRC. Now, the LDC may still be doing diagnostic, it's really learning diagnostic, yeah. They may still do diagnostic tests and things like that for both our students and members of the public, but they are not doing academic testing at all. All of that has been moved to the Disability Resources Center here in the library. As part of that change, appointments and adding additional staff in order to be able to act as a reader or a scribe for particular students was also moved to our responsibility instead of the DRC's responsibility. That happened in fall of 2020. When the new director came on board and he reviewed policies, he determined that there was some unfairness between the standard appointment making process and the process required for accommodated students. In effect, this was that if you had a standard appointment and your instructor had already set up their exam windows and stuff, you only needed 48 hours notice to be able to make that appointment. But DRC students needed to give us 7 calendar days notice. And that was to take into account weekends, because those requests don't get checked on weekends, because surprisingly, I don't work weekends. And neither does my administrative assistant who assists with those. And they wanted them to be the same. So it was determined this summer that in order to make this as equivalent as possible, both the accommodated exams and the standard appointments all have a 5-day advance notice. And as we discussed earlier, there's supposed to be a 5-day advance notice for all appointments. What accommodated students do is very different than what they used to do. What they used to do, I'm going to pull this document up. What they used to do is that they would go to the testing center, or not to the testing center, go to the DRC, they would get their approved accommodations, they would provide those accommodations to their instructor, And then when they would make appointments directly with us through the same system that we just demonstrated, and they would we would then determine what was needed to administer their exams. Over the summer, this change was made. Okay. And this is what was sent to the students in August. First, the students are required to have an accommodated testing agreement for every class with every instructor that they want to use the University Testing Center. If they're not going to use the testing center, this is not applicable. This is only applicable if they're planning to take exams at the testing center. Okay. And this testing agreement has to be done collaboratively between the instructor and the student. And again, it has to be redone every semester for every class. So what the students have to do is they log into what's called the Bear Access portal, and they sign in, and again, they need their Bear Pass username and password to do this. They will go through this process of submitting an alternative testing agreement. If you don't see it, if they don't see it listed, they might not have selected alternative testing links like they're supposed to. And they have to go through this. Next semester, it'll say spring 2022 instead of fall 21. And then they have to fill out this entire online agreement, and the instructor will also get information, so the instructor can either agree to it or not agree to it. Sometimes the students don't actually know what the requirements are for a given exam, so that gives the instructor an opportunity to make corrections if they need to. So once they do this, hold on just a second.
And Sue, I just wanted to let you know, I'm
Yeah.
not sure the screen sharing, I'm not sure we're at the same place you're talking about.
Okay, what can you see right now?
We see the Missouri State online faculty page. Is that what you're on?
You're not seeing.
I didn't.
You're not seeing my document. All right, let's see if I can make that go away. Can you see this now?
No, it's still the Missouri State online faculty, the web page.
Well, let's
You
see.
may have to stop sharing and then
Yeah,
restart.
it says pause, but let me see if I can redo it. Let's see. Let's try again. Now, can you see it?
Yes.
Magic. Okay. All right, we'll start my explanation slightly over. Students were sent this back in August, and I think if somebody gets new accommodations approved, they get this again. There are 2 steps for them to be able to test here at the testing center using their accommodations. And the first one is they have to complete this testing agreement. This testing agreement is a collaborative process between the student and their instructor. And it has to be done every semester for every class. So just because they did it this semester doesn't mean that it's done. They have to come back again and do it again in January. So they will go through this. See right here in step 8, it says go through each of the questions with your instructor to determine how the University Testing Center will administer your exams. This does not have to be done in person. I know that some of them are, but not everybody. But it can be done online or via email, or whatever works for you and your student. I know, especially if it's an online class and the student may never have an opportunity to meet in person. And so they may have to do it through email or on the phone or whatever works. One thing is that this partly came out of a university committee about accessibility for students. And one of the things that they were very clear and desirous of was more interaction between accommodated students and their faculty. And so that's why this testing agreement has come into being. They have to go through the whole thing. Once they submit alternative testing, once they submit it, a copy of the agreement will be sent to your instructor for confirmation. You don't absolutely have to confirm it, but it'll sit there and remind you that it needs to be confirmed for a while until you do it. And it will continually say contract not confirmed in their testing agreement area. So it's really important that they go ahead and confirm the agreement so we can approve their test appointments. If they don't approve this, we can't let them make appointments until the signed testing agreement is in place. We are not allowed to make appointments. Final, full stop right there. Just simply not allowed to make appointments. Once they've done this, a student then who wants to make appointments is going to use the request their accommodations option, sign in again. They're going to go through this schedule an exam button. Although it says schedule an exam, what it's really doing is requesting an exam appointment from us and the exam materials from their instructor. Once they submit that, I will review it and determine if we can meet this request. Most of the time, this is an issue if the student requires a private room or needs a reader or a scribe, something that requires additional staff. I may not be able to accommodate it every single time they ask. If my 3 private rooms, which is all I've got for privacy, are already occupied for the date and time that a new student wants, we have to work out something else. Typically, this is only a problem during midterms and finals. We can all guess why that is. Because we're that much busier, we're that much more busy. That's it. And once they do that, then they approve it. It is very important from an instructor standpoint that when the instructor gets the email that says your student has requested an exam for X date and X time, we get a copy of that. And there is a link in the email that says, please use this link to something to this effect. Please use this link to upload your exam information or your exam materials, whatever it is you have. It's important that they do that instead of emailing it to me or printing it out and hand carrying it over here. That is like the worst thing, and I'll explain why. We need to keep control of exams. If you print out an exam and walk it over here, it's exposed to multiple opportunities for that exam security to be compromised. Faculty have a tendency to think we all know them by sight, so they will come into the testing center and drop off a test, and they won't say who they are. They won't say who the test is for. They won't say when the test is supposed to be given. They'll just leave it on our desk and walk off. And that's just not acceptable. It doesn't associate the test with the student, their accommodations, or their appointment. If they email it to me, that is also a problem, because if it's on we do accommodated exams on the weekends, and I'm not checking work email on weekends. So I can't, there is nothing I can do there. If they send me something on the weekend or on a holiday or something, I won't see it. It just won't happen. Trying to maintain some work-life balance there. So what we want them to do is use the link. And the reason we want them to use the link is it's a secure exam upload. It automatically associates their exam materials with the student, their appointment, and their accommodations. So it's very important that they do that. I'm trying to encourage faculty when I interact with them to make sure they do this. It is different than it used to be, but it's the way it is now. And again, these procedures were put in place to help ensure that we are in compliance with federal law about accommodations, where we have to try and be the same for both accommodated students and students who are just taking standard appointments. They have to be as similar experience as possible. Same is true for accommodated exams. We have to try and give them as much as possible during the time that their class, the rest of their class is taking an exam. And again, sometimes that's easier said than done. And the DRC understands that we can't always do that because I don't have unlimited space and unlimited staff. So we work our way around it. It does make a difference what information you as a faculty member give us. And I realize most of you are may or may not be faculty members, but you may be working with faculty or even just your colleagues that may have questions about this. Every year I'm surprised that I will get a faculty member who says, I've been teaching here for blank number of years. One just told me recently they've been here 30 years and they've never had a student request accommodations for an exam. I don't know how that happens, but my understanding is we have fewer accommodated students than other comparable universities of our size. So I won't be real surprised if the number of accommodations you see may start going up. I do want to give you guys enough time to ask me questions, but are people interested in seeing what it looks like from our side? Ross, what you think?
Yeah, I mean, Sue, we've got still.
Yeah, you still got 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to pause the screen sharing and see if it lets me come back to what I need to do. So hold on. Great. Try again. Okay. This is an example. This is for Tuesday, October 5th, and this is an example of what we see when we come in for exams. You'll see that they are separated by type of exam. You'll see that we know how many seats are reserved for any given time. We've got the accommodated exams broken out here. We have computer-based exams for DTN 240 here. We have some competency exams coming in 21 and 21. There's a math placement exam, which notice it says remote version. That means I just need to set them up in the course. We have some Zoom sessions scheduled, and this is a vendor exam, because here's what we normally see. We see accommodated exams. We see academic exams for Missouri State Online. We see some of these specialty exams for our institutions, such as graduate subject comps or math placement exam, that kind of thing. And we do vendor exams. On this particular day, the only vendor exam that is on our system is this probe exam, but that is not necessarily always the case. Logged me out. I took too long to look at it. This is today. You'll see we have Zoom sessions. For traditional seated and blended classes, we can do makeup exams. You'll see we've got two makeup exams here. One of these is for a seated class, because I just happen to know, and one of these is for an online class. There is the math placement exam. There is a paper exam. The Zoom sessions are very popular since we introduced them last year during COVID, but there are restrictions in place. The restrictions are the student either needs to be sick or contagious, or in quarantine, or remotely located more than an hour away from camp, physically, actually more than an hour away from campus. The registration form for Zooms asks them that. And that's because during normal times like today, we may only have 3 and they'll be back to back. But during final exam weeks, we may do 30 or more Zoom sessions in a day. And to be able to accommodate that, we have to be able to use our limited resources wisely. We have had days where I have literally had 3 devices going at once, and so has my Zoom scheduler, so that we could be in 3 different Zoom sessions, each trying to proctor those exams. That is not ideal, and it's not how we want to do it. It really should be one-on-one. It should be 1 proctor, 1 student for Zoom exams. The exception is that at a instructor's discretion, if they are willing to do small group exams by Zoom, we can do that. No more than 6 students at a time, but that does greatly expand our capability in being able to do Zoom sessions. Students need to give us plenty of advance notice if they want a Zoom session. We do have some availability for emergencies, like a student was supposed to take an exam today, but they just got put in quarantine today, or they just got their positive COVID test today. In that case, it's the instructor's responsibility to contact us and ask us to try and work around that late notice. Sometimes we have somebody available, sometimes we don't. In which case the instructor sometimes has to be flexible, or the instructor has to get that information, maybe work with the student and do the Zoom themselves. If you'll hang on just a second, I need to respond to an issue. Let's see, it's always something. Okay, they can't find a test. All right, so working here is, it can be, we can have days where we're not doing anything, and we can have days where, you know, today doesn't look too bad. It's kind of spread out, kind of, you know, so it's a little scattered. It's not too bad at all. But then if we look at, say, next week, right before midterms, that Friday is fall break. Guess why we don't see anybody, right? Because it's Friday's fall break. And Thursday the 7th is technically fall break, so they're not here. But look at Wednesday right before they go to fall break. It'll be much busier. We already have students scheduling for finals. That's great. I want them to do that because the further out they can do this, the better it is for us and the better it is for them, because they already have their appointments made. If they wait until the last minute, then there is not going to be as much space available. Our schedule knows how many seats we have available. So the system, the software does. So it will start blocking people out and saying, this date is full, you can't schedule for at this particular time. And then students will start emailing us and say, but I need to take this test at such and such a time. Well, you waited until everybody else had already booked the seats. For paper exams in particular, it's highly competitive. We have, during the day, we have 8 seats for paper. with a potential overflow room. The overflow room is connected to us and technically we own it, but other groups sometimes request to use it. And if they've requested to use it and that's been approved, then we can't use that room. So there are issues there where students need to be aware. As advisors, you may have students who are asking about CLEP exams. We do administer CLEP exams here. It's just that students assume that because a CLEP exam is on the CLEP website that Missouri State will accept it, and that is not necessarily the case. There is a list on Missouri State's website of what exams, CLEP exams will accept. Students have to buy the exam from CLEP and then also schedule an appointment and pay a $25 sitting fee to us to be able to take a CLEP exam. It does not matter if, sorry, my phone's always ringing. It doesn't matter if they're Missouri State students. There are a few exams where we waive the sitting fee if they are Missouri State students, but in most cases, if it's a non-academic test, they're going to have to pay a sitting fee. And we're right in it's $25 for most of them, and we're right about in the middle of testing fee charges as far as the average for this size, for our size of a school. We are working on being certified by the National College Testing Association, which we are hoping to have available very soon. There's a lot of hoops to jump through to make that happen. But once that happens, we'll be nationally certified. If someone is looking for an external testing location, I strongly recommend that they use the NCTA website, find a proctor service, which is on their website. But just as a heads up for most, in most cases, many institutional testing centers like us are not testing external candidates. They are only testing their own students, or they have they're operating at half or less capacity, or similar situations like that. They may not be back open at all yet. I know several testing centers that still aren't open. We're a little unusual in that we've been fully open and at no reduction capacity since June of 2020. But those are slowly becoming open again, but it is not unusual for a student to no longer be able to find someplace local to them that will let them test. It's one of the reasons we are still doing Zoom sessions, is to help those students who can't find someplace local to them. It's students should not be surprised that they are having, or neither should faculty, that there's still a problem with doing that. Okay, I think we got about 10 minutes left. Do we want to open the question and answers?
Yeah, I think that's great. And feel free, for those of you who may have questions for Sue, feel free to use the chat feature or just unmute and ask a question.
I may just have told you way too much information and you're still percolating. I do have a recorded video from a walkthrough I did for faculty back in August, and I'll be happy to provide that to Ross, and he can share it with anybody that's attending or anybody who wants to know that I've been told it's a decent walkthrough. So I think we could do that. So I will try to provide that to Ross later today so that he can share that. Oh, anything we should know about the university exit survey, because yes, that is in my pocket as well. The university exit survey, the civics exam, because I bet there's questions about the civics exam, are also both in my wheelhouse. The university exit exam, we typically update degree audits on Wednesdays. It's just, there's no particular time on Wednesday. It's whatever time I'm I get to it. I start trying to do it first thing in the morning, and sometimes it's 4:30 before I actually get to run it, just depending on what else is going on. There are two parts to it. Again, hurdles that students don't clear would be failing to do the second part. I personally feel like if it says part one, that I would assume there was at least a part two, but a lot of students don't. And they do part one and then wander off and they never come back and do part two. And then they're all mad because, but I did it. Well, you kind of did it. You did half of it. Sometimes they have problems. There's instructions at the beginning that says they have to click for the reviewed status to be able to get part one. And even though it says click the reviewed status to be able to see part one, I will get an email or a phone call about how they can't see part one. Click the button, click the reviewed status. Once they cannot see part two until they've completed and submitted part one. It may not show up immediately. They may have to refresh the page or log out of the course and come back in, but it's there. And they need to complete it. I probably have dozens of students every semester that could have met this requirement, but at the end of the semester, they're sitting there with just part one. That's all they did. And that doesn't carry over to the next semester. So they have to do it again if they do it in the next semester. The exit exam is available until first fall semester. It'll be live and available until January 30th, because that's the last day they process diplomas for the fall semester. The spring one is open until June the 30th for the same reason. That's the last day they process diplomas for spring graduates. The summer one is open until August 31st, because that's the last day they process diplomas for summer graduates. If they fail to hit that deadline, then they have to reapply for graduation again and make sure everything's met and start over again. For a lot of students, this is probably not a huge problem, but if you got a job, for instance, or admitted to a graduate program based on your graduation status and you missed that exit exam, and that's the thing you didn't do, and so now you're not a spring graduate anymore, you're a summer graduate, or I've had them later than that even, that can adversely impact you wherever you're at, because you have told them that you're a spring graduate, but there's no documentation, you don't have a diploma, and there's no documentation that you're a spring graduate because you're not. So that's a problem for many students. The civics exam, if anybody's interested in the civics exam, also gets updated on Wednesdays. Wednesdays just update day. If you qualify to take it, you're automatically enrolled. Students often think that because they took a civics exam in high school that they don't have to take this one too, but they do. That's what the law says. It's a higher education thing. If they took a civics exam at a private higher ed institution, that doesn't count either. They still have to take ours. The only way that they cannot take ours is that they meet the qualification of having entered a public higher education institution before fall of 2019, or they have something transcriptable from their previous higher ed institution showing they took it. The exams are not the same necessarily. CMOS is the same, but that's because they stole a line. So CMOS is the same as ours, but other institutions are not necessarily the same. And that's the way the law was written. They can take it as many times as they need to until they meet the passing score. The study guides are right there on Blackboard. There is nothing keeping them from printing out the study guides and using those to take the test. I'm not going to tell someone to do it, but I'm going to tell you that there's nothing stopping them from doing it. There's no, it doesn't require lockdown browser. There's no password, nothing. So it's, we do have a question pool so that every time they log in to take the test, they should get a slightly different set of questions. There will be some duplication from version to version because we don't have an unlimited test pool, but there is at least some difference from attempt to attempt. Any other questions?
Okay.
I'm happy to answer by email, even if anybody has any questions about the exit survey, the math placement exam, the civics exam, any of those stuff. Feel free to email me and I'll
Sue,
answer them.
this is Alan Chicken Chemistry.
Hi, Alan.
Hi, I have a kind of a request.
Yes.
You know, I get these notices from you about accommodated exams and stuff. And I go in to fill out the form and there seems to be an awful lot of information that I need to put into that form that the form should already know. And I don't know if there's anything you can do to feed that to the people who actually program that. I mean, when the student signs up for it, you said that, you know, they put in their password and it downloads all of their information, so they don't have to fill all that stuff out. I mean, I go and have to put in my own name. I have to put in the course. I mean, all that stuff is actually in the email that is sent from your office that tells me that an exam is for this student and it's for this, you know, this is the time that they're requesting and this is the course that it's for. And I have to put all that in to the thing. And if I've got 5 or 6 people from the same class that are doing these accommodation things, I have to do it 5 or 6 times.
I understand that.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that that's not our system. That's the DRC system. So I don't have any control over that.
Okay. So would there be somebody in DRC that I could talk to? I mean, somebody's programming.
You can try the
right?
director. His name is Andrew Oliver.
Okay.
I will tell you that they are extremely shorthanded right now. They have the director and 1 advisor. That's it. They don't have an associate director. They don't have multiple advisors. They no longer have an administrative assistant. They are extremely shorthanded right now. So I don't know how fast he'd be able to respond to you.
Okay.
But
right, thanks.
you can start there. Start there.
Okay. Well, Sue, thank you for joining us today for the advisor forum and sharing information about the testing center and information that we can now share with our students and our advisees. Participants, thank you for joining us today and continuing to support the Master Advisor Program here at Missouri State. If you have colleagues that are interested in learning more about the testing center from Sue's session today, again, as Sue mentioned, please feel free to reach out to her directly. This advisor forum has been recorded and will also be posted on our Mo State Advising YouTube channel as a resource. So again, Sue, thank you. And
Okay.
everyone have a great Thursday.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ross.
Okay, bye.
Bye.